Chapter 12:05. Qin Shun 3. Qin Fei once again felt the pain in her heart as if it was burning with fire. She could not help but grab her chest. How could this be? Why could she not use her spiritual powers anymore? Was it because of the repercussion of that spirit herb? No, something was wrong. The repercussion of that spirit herb would only make her grow older. Nothing more than that. She did not feel this pain before, when she defeated Luo Fei and fought with Gu Shi. Suddenly, something flashed in Qin Fei's mind, which seemed to fill her face even more discomfort. She had been fine until today. The only thing that she had done today was consume the last drug primer that Qin Shun had left behind. No, it was impossible. Even if Qin Shun wanted to leave the Qin family, he would not do this to her since she was so good to him. She must have had the wrong assumption. Qin Fei calmed herself and walked toward the old Master Mu. She then looked at Suyi, who was sympathetically standing in front of the old Master Mu. "Aunt Su, initially, you would have been my mother-in-law. It's a pity that you've chosen that wicked woman Feng Ruqing rather than me. You've pushed away my kindness and my gentleness, and driven me away. I, Qin Fei, have been treating people with kindness all my life, but Feng Ruqing and Gu Yi have been targeting me relentlessly. They didn't allow me to be a concubine in the Mu family, and they have even taken my brother from me. We are irreconcilable enemies." Qin Fei's eyes were bloodshot. Her good manners, kindness, and gentleness were all gone because of these people. They had turned her into a demon. Her energy suddenly became stronger, and even if her heart was burning, she no longer cared about it. She stared coldly at the crowd in front of her with her pair of crimson eyes. The ambience became eerier. The wind was so gusty that even the sunshine in the sky had suddenly disappeared. The sound of killing and shouting sounded from behind her. Suyi looked up and saw a group of young men and women holding sharp weapons, killing people from the back of the crowd. Those were the orphans whom she had adopted back then. After 20 years, these children had grown up. Suyi's face was filled with tears and her lips trembled as she was rendered speechless. Me for extra chapters. I've only been gone for a few days now, and I've heard about the change in Heavenly City. An old, fragile voice thundered in the sky. "Little Suyi, something big has happened. Why didn't you tell me?" Hai Rong walked out of the void, standing with one hand behind his back and smiling. "Perhaps this time, it is because I have been alone for too many years that it is rare to meet such an unforgettable friend in this condition. How can I sit back and do nothing? Besides," Hai Rong smiled, "I still want to get some recipe for the herbal dish from Little Qing, so I can't leave you here alone." Suyi suddenly burst out laughing. Hai Rong had purposely said those things as he was afraid she would feel guilty. After all, life was more important than the herbal dish's recipe. Sending charcoal in the snow was better than adding flowers to a brocade. Qin Li's face did not even twitch when she was faced with these unexpected people. No matter how many people will come today, all of you still won't have a good ending. Fair, ignore these people. Let's settle the Mu family and head to Tianshan Manor. All right. Qin Fei lifted her sleeves, and a wave of boundless energy fiercely swept out like a violent storm, emitting a heavy aura. Chapter 12:06. Qin Shun 4. Lady Suyi, Master, be careful. The old butler was so shocked. He disregarded his own safety and rushed toward his masters, shielding them from the attack of the raging storm. Suyi did not dodge the attack. She placed herself in front of this powerful force. The old master had suffered a severe injury just now, and she could not bear to just let the old master die. Hai Rong did not expect Qin Fei would suddenly strike out of anger. The orphans cried out in pain, and their eyes were all red. Boom! The boundless power was like a gigantic dragon, devouring the 3 little shrimps that were floating in the air above the sea. Everyone believed that Suyi and the old master would not be able to avoid the impact even after the old butler had placed himself shielding them. Qin Li guffawed boisterously. That's what happens when you pick the wrong team. The clans that followed Qin Li were glad that they had made the right choice. Even the old master of the Mu family was no match for Qin Fei, let alone them. Among the people present, some were angry, some were grieved, and some were glad. But all the emotions disappeared when the storm was over. The sun appeared in the sky again. Sui was still standing on the steps and was supporting the old master with a cold, expressionless gaze. Qin Li's laughter stopped abruptly, and without waiting for him to ask about her, Qin Feier spat a mouthful of blood. Her body seemed somewhat weak. She staggered and almost fell to the ground. Feier! Qin Li was so shocked that he quickly ran to Qin Feier and held her arm, asking anxiously, "What is wrong with you?" Qin Feier covered her chest with her hands. Her voice wavered, and she gritted her teeth to keep herself from crying out. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded, freezing the surrounding atmosphere. Me for extra chapters. I know what has happened to her. To the Qin family, this voice was very familiar. Qin Li's eyes reddened. He slowly raised his head and stared hard at the young man who had emerged from behind the crowd. The young man's face was handsome, and his black robe made him look even more stunning. His gaze was still as clear as water, but it was not as bright as before. His aura was chilling to the bones, causing the people present to shiver in fear. Qin Chun. Qin Li's face darkened. You finally have the guts to show yourself? The young man walked slowly toward the Mu family, without sparing a glance at Qin Li. Sui felt much better after she saw the young man. Didn't you go to the chief manor to help Gu Shi? Why did you come back? We'll be fine here. It's hard for Nan Xian to come back if they don't have someone out there to help them. He has almost recovered from his injury, and he has enough strength to stand guard outside the realm. I came back to settle my own affairs. There were some things, some debts he had to deal with. It was she who had taught him. No more patience. Vengeance must be exacted. Perhaps it was the girl's stunning smile that came to Qin Chen's mind again, softening him a little. A smile that was as bright as sunshine appeared on his handsome face. But to Qin Feier, it felt like a thorn poking at her heart. Qin Feier stood up straight, but was trembling. Her grief-stricken gaze was fixed upon Qin Shun when she asked, "Qin Shun, tell me, are you the one who has done this to me?" Chapter 12:07. Qin Shenvi, the stern-faced young man, looked at Qin Feier coldly. His expression was cold and distant, as if he had never smiled at her in the past. She had always cared for him, but it still could not touch his cold heart. Isn't he the ungrateful kid from the Qin family? He's really choosing to stand by the Mu family. All these years, the Qin family had fed and brought up a dog, raising such an ungrateful kid. Now, he is even giving up his adoptive father and mother just because of another woman. He has not given it much thought. Without the Qin family, he's nothing and would have starved to death back then on the streets. But I heard Maiden Qin said, just now, something has happened to her body, and it was Qin Shin who did it? If this matter has something to do with him, that ungrateful kid is not as simple as that. That wicked kid deserves to die. Initially, those families were silent, only obeying the Qin family's orders. But since Qin Shin appeared, these people sneered, and their eyes turned cold. Qin Shin walked slowly toward the Qin family. Qin Feier, I will only ask you once. Do I, Qin Shun, owe anything to the Qin family? Qin Feier's body trembled. She clenched her fists and had trouble breathing. Facing Qin Shun had always softened her a little, even after Qin Shun had turned his back on the Qin family. But his question had suddenly made her silent. Qin Li laughed coldly. Of course you owe the Qin family. All these years, we've raised you well, yet you repay us with betrayal. It's better to raise a dog than you. Qin Shen's face was cold, sullen, and expressionless. Her gaze gave them a chill. I don't care who I am, and I don't care about the Qin family. The moment you used my blood as a drug primer for Qin Feier, I don't owe the Qin family anymore. It's you who owe me. These words, he would never have been able to say it back then. He had never exposed the secret about him adopted by the Qin family to the world, and even Feng Ruqing, because the world would not believe him, and Feng Ruqing would have grieved. Fortunately, Qinger was not here, and now he did not care if these people believe him or not, as he only wanted to get a clear conscience. Me for extra chapters. Qin Chun. Qin Feier's face turned pale, and she bellowed imperiously. Do you know what you're talking about? She was his sister. How could he expose the most important secret of the Qin family in front of so many people? Qin Shin stopped and stared at Qin Feier coldly. When I was 10 years old, I couldn't bear it anymore and had run from the Qin family. Your body has recovered quite a bit back then, and the Qin family didn't even look for me, a useless kid. It was not until your condition relapsed again that the Qin family had immediately started looking for my whereabouts. I have long experienced great hardship and faced a lot of insults. In the past few years, even though I had suffered a lot, it was better than becoming a drug primer in the Qin family. And everything has changed after I met Feng Ruqing. She made me feel at home and made me understand what family and friends are. I once lived for the Qin family, but now I, Qin Shun, only live for Feng Ruqing. Qin Shun was a cold and quiet person. He did not care if others called him an ungrateful kid. Chapter 12:08. Qin Shin 6, however. He did not want to hear any more insults about Feng Ruqing. He wanted to expose the Qin family's fake niceness in front of everyone. Even if all the people present were from the Qin family, he wanted to make it clear that Feng Ruqing had never done anything wrong. Then why did you come back? Qin Feier's face reflected discomfort. She was staring hard at the handsome young man. Qin Shin's gaze somewhat drifted off before he smiled and said, "Because of Qingqing." Qin Feier froze as she could not understand what he meant. Didn't you want to be Nan Xian's concubine? I hate Nan Xian. I hate anyone who's close to Feng Ruqing. But for me, as long as Feng Ruqing is happy, I will never let anyone hinder her happiness. So, I'm back. Qin Feier's eyes narrowed with anger, and her face was as pale as paper as she thought about the changes in her body. My body, is it really your fault? Yes. I've consumed all the herbs that I need after returning here. I've also learned much about all sorts of herbs from Feng Ruqing. So, I didn't offer my blood. There was nothing wrong with being honest. But a person should not be too honest, especially with some people who did not deserve it. He finally understood these words after he met Feng Ruqing. Initially, when using my blood, I only needed to add a spirit herb to make it work. However, I've promised Qingqing that I would not harm myself again. So I took one of the Qin family's spirit beasts and used its blood with few colorless and tasteless spirit herbs. The Qin family had grounded the spirit beasts, but some of them were still untamed. And the Qin family had trusted Qin Shin too much that they did not restrict his freedom to walk around freely. There were plenty of opportunities for Qin Shin to do that. I was right in my calculation. A total of 20 drug primers will make you unable to use your spiritual power. Initially, I wanted to see you drink those 20 times before leaving the Qin family. So, it seems that you have consumed the last drug primer today. Every time Feng Ruqing was mentioned, Qin Shin's smile became as bright as sunshine, which was something that Qin Feier had never seen before. Qin Feier's voice trembled. Why? If that's the case, why did you leave the Qin family again? Me for extra chapters. Because, Qin Shin paused. My Qingqing has come to me and asked me to follow her. If I insisted on staying in the Qin family, she should be most embarrassed. I could not let her lose her face in front of other people. I will follow her whenever she asks me to. Qin Feier's legs weakened, but she forced herself to hold on. Her face turned paler, and her eyes were filled with grief. She never thought that her brother whom she had loved the most would maltreat her. Sui handed the old master to the old butler and walked slowly toward Qin Shun. By rights, as Nan Xian's mother, she should be worried when Qin Shun expressed his feelings toward Feng Ruqing. However, what had happened to Qin Shun was so heartbreaking. Qin Shun, the Qin family has made you suffer and called you as an ungrateful kid. You have made the right choice, leaving the Qin family. If you don't mind, you can consider me as your mother. Besides, Nan Xian also needs a little brother to be with him. There was an expression of sympathy on Suyi's cold face. She gently patted Qin Shin's back and let out a sigh. All these things, it seems like Qing'er doesn't know yet. Otherwise, Qing'er would have already annihilated the Qin family because she cared so much for Qin Shun. Chapter 12:09. Qin Shun 7. Qin Shun. Qin Li's face was cold and fierce as he bellowed, Don't ever forget, without the Qin family, you would have lost your life a long time ago. Your father and your mother didn't want you at all. It was the Qin family that has picked you up, given you such an honorable status, and raised you well for so many years. Becoming the drug primer for Feier is a chance for you to return the favor. Who are you to question us? If Qin Feier was not in pain, Qin Li would have made her attack those people again. But in this situation, he had to allow her to recover first. After all, that old master of the Mu family had always been strong. The flunkies behind the Qin family looked at each other with a mocking gaze before they turned to Qin Shen. What Master Qin said is true. The Qin family has saved your life. Forget about becoming a drug primer. You should not even think twice about sacrificing your life at their behest. Why are people nowadays so ungrateful? If all men are like you, no one in this world will dare to be kind again. Qin Shen, if I were you, I would never bite the hand that feeds me. God is watching your every move, and you'll always get what's coming to you. Sui had never seen such a shameless person before. She was unable to remain calm, and so she coldly shouted, "Enough!" Did Xiao Qin ever beg the Qin family to adopt him? With the kindness the Qin family thought they had, maybe he didn't need it. If he could have made a choice back then, he would have rather died in the middle of nowhere than enter a place like Qin Manor. Sui did not know how to be a drug primer. But when a young child would rather run away from home than stay with the Qin family who had raised him, she could assume that the process must be so painful for him. If Qin Shun was given another chance, he would surely have chosen to die back then, and would never have set his foot in a place that had grounded him for nearly 20 years. In fine, the old master Mu pushed the old butler's hand. His robe was stained with blood, but his pace was steady, and his gaze was stern and cold. This is the first time in my life that I've met such a shameless person. Qin Li, I've always disliked you and your Qin family, so we'll settle this today. God is watching your every move. These words are true indeed. But today, I'll throw this phrase back to you. Old Master Mu laughed wildly, and the laughter echoed in the sky for a long time. Boom! A boundless power surged out violently. Qin Li panicked as he could feel the old master's energy. He turned his head to Qin Feier. Feier, how's it going? Do you want to try again? Me for extra chapters. He did not believe that Qin Shun had the strength to do so. Maybe he was just trying to scare them. Qin Feier turned and faced the old Master Mu. Her expression was calm again, and a violent storm slowly emerged, emitting a strong aura. Before Qin Feier could use her spiritual power, another mouthful of blood spurted out from her mouth, and her spiritual energy that had overpowered Master Mu just now disappeared completely. The skies were calm again, and even the atmosphere was different than before. No, I can't do this. Qin Feier bit down on her lower lip so hard that she could taste her own blood. Her eyes were red as she stared hard at Qin Shun. How did you do that? What the hell have you done with the drug primer? Why are you doing this to me? Why? You can tell me if you don't want to be a drug primer. But you have never said anything, and I thought you were doing it of your own accord. I have never wanted to force you. But why did you do this to me? Qin Feier snarled at her last words, and her face was soaked in tears. Chapter 12:10. Everyone has arrived. With Qin Feier condition now, even strangers would feel sympathy for her. However, Qin Shun was as calm as water, and his face remained expressionless. Feier. Qin Li hurriedly supported Qin Feier's trembling body. His eyes were filled with anger as they stared fiercely at Qin Shun. Qin Shen, you are such an ungrateful kid. It's my fault in trusting you. You're so ungrateful. I should not save your life in the first place. Boom! A wave of strong forces suddenly surged out of his palm, transforming into countless sharp swords in the air before swiftly rushing toward Qin Shun. Before the swords could reach the target, the old Master Mu was already standing next to Qin Shun. He waved his sleeve, and all the swords in the air suddenly disappeared without a trace. The old man's sleeves were swaying along with the breeze. The sky was getting dark, and his pale face turned more serious under the sunset. He stared at the Qin family and the group behind them coldly. Sui is right. If you give this boy another chance, he would not have chosen to become a member of the Qin family, and the Qin family has no right to control his life. Boundless spiritual forces surged around the old master like a raging storm, constantly striking against them. There was a big difference between Qin Li's power and the old master's after all. Qin Li quickly lifted his arm to resist the forces, but failed. His body fell backward from this powerful storm, landing in the crowd behind him loudly and helplessly. It seemed that Qin Li could not even block the old master's attack, and he felt so embarrassed about it. His face was somewhat pale with a trail of blood hanging from the corner of his mouth. He raised his hand, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and slowly rose from the ground. "That's all that you've got?" Qin Li laughed out loud. He glanced at the person who had just emerged from behind the Mu family with a faint mocking smile. "So what if I can't beat you? After all, the chief position in Tianshan Manor will be passed to another person soon." Huh? The sky was getting dark, and all the streets in Tianshan Manor were dusky. The old master Mu's eyes narrowed, and before he could understand what Qin Li had said just now, a peal of cold laughter suddenly resounded in his ears. "So, Qin Shin is really such an ungrateful kid. Grandfather, I don't care what Master Qin is doing here. Qin Shin is from the Qin family, and if he wants to settle scores with him, as an outsider, it seems that you have no right to interfere." Qin Li's eyes lit up as he glanced at Qin Chan gloomily. "Me for extra chapters. That's right, I'm going to clean up the sect. Qin Shin is from the Qin family. Even if I kill him, you guys have no right to be nosy." He knew that because of Qin Shun, the rebellious son, Fair could not use her spiritual power anymore. And now there was no way they could continue fighting with the Mu family. But Qin Shun was a member of the Qin family. He had betrayed the Qin family and done such a thing. The Qin family wanted to kill him, so the outsiders had no right to interfere with their family matters. Mu Huan. The old Master Mu's face changed drastically as he turned to Mu Huan furiously. Mu Ling, who had come along with Mu Huan, froze as he did not expect Mu Huan to say that. He did not like Qin Shun, but now the real enemy of the Mu family was the Qin family. Mu Huan. Why is she helping the Qin family? Indeed, even a fool like Mu Ling could sense that there was something fishy with Mu Huan's words. His face reflected discomfort as he came to his senses. "Mu Huan, you, shut up. You have no right to say anything here." Chapter 12:11. Everyone has arrived too. Mu Huan glanced fiercely at Mu Ling and slowly turned to Suyi again with her overbearing gaze. "But it'll give you a chance. If you kowtow to my mother and admit your mistake, it'll help you to save the boy." Suyi glanced at Mu Huan. Her white robe was as white as snow, and she looked simple but elegant against the evening sky. "Oh." Her tone remained calm, and there was no sign of anger on her face. She then turned around to look at Qin Li. "Qin Shin was just your adopted son, and I've decided to adopt him as my son. Now, he is not from the Qin family anymore, and later he will change his family name to Nan." Fortunately, Feng Tianyu was not here when Sui said this. If he had known this, he would surely fight with her about it. There was no doubt about it. She had taken his daughter, and now his son. Did she plan to let him live all alone for the rest of his life? Mu Huan let out a cold laugh, as she had already known about Suyi's plan. "It seems that your concern for Qin Shun is also hypocritical. My mother is different from you. With her kindness, she will definitely lay down her pride to save others. It is no wonder. Only a selfish man like Mu Ling would love a hypocritical woman like you." Suddenly, the skilled masters, who were initially standing behind Mu Huan, made a move. They moved as fast as lightning, and in a flash, they were already rushing towards Suyi and the others. Before this, Suyi and a few others had some difficulty facing advanced holy warriors. If it were not for Qin Shin's initial move, they would not have been able to easily subdue the Qin family. Now, above them stood several holy warriors, and two of them had even made a breakthrough to advanced holy warrior tier. The old Master Mu's face was filled with alarm and disbelief. Suyi's face remained calm, but her eyes were also full of caution. "Suyi, Mu Ling was stunned and quickly rushed to Suyi's side. Just then, a familiar voice came from behind him. Mu Ling, you have to think carefully. Huana has brought those people, but if you go to defend Suyi, they will surely kill you too. Chen Qingyan laughed coldly and walked next to Mu Ling with a mocking smile. Me for extra chapters. Mu Ling froze as a flicker of hesitation flashed in his eyes. Because of his hesitation, those people were already swooping towards Suyi, the old Master Mu, and others. The spiritual qi was like a monstrous wolf, and the sky was dimmed by the multiple strikes from the many holy warriors, setting off a vicious aura. Suddenly, an angry roar of a phoenix thundered in the sky. Suyi froze for a moment and hurriedly looked up in the sky. She was distracted by this and did not dodge the attack from a man in front of her. She could only helplessly watch the fierce punch coming at her. She had not felt such pain in such a long time. Suyi then saw a flash of white light and a huge figure appearing in front of her, blocking out all the raging storms for her. She spat a mouthful of blood, but the huge phoenix remained standing in front of Suyi. It had always loved to cry, but at this moment, its firm eyes were only filled with a monstrous fury. Don't touch Suyi. No one can touch her, because the person behind it was the only person whom it would try its best to protect and keep safe. Chapter 12:12. Everyone has arrived 320 years ago, the day they first met. Her body was battered and bruised, and she was with a child. And it was abandoned, hiding alone in the mountain to heal its wounds. Two beings with the same pain had met, and since then, had spent countless difficult years together. It would not let anyone hurt her. Suyi deserved to enjoy all the beautiful things in this world. The white phoenix's body was trembling, not knowing if the wound was too painful or because it was panicking. It could not imagine if it had arrived later and that punch had already hit Suyi. How could her delicate body withstand it? Luckily, he was able to come on time, and Suyi did not get hurt. White Phoenix, Suyi could not remember the last time she had shed tears. It seemed as if she had not cried since she had left with Nan Xian. Now, she could not stop her tears from flowing down as she saw the white phoenix standing in front of her. The white phoenix panicked and quickly used its wings to wipe away her tears. Suyi, you used to say that I love to cry. So why are you crying now? Don't cry. I'm really not in pain at all. I'm strong enough to protect Suyi, just like Nan Xian is protecting Qingqing. Who sent you here? Suyi turned and asked. The white phoenix pouted. I have missed you, and I will go wherever Suyi goes. Nan Xian can pursue little Qingqing, so I also can pursue you. It felt that it was completely transparent with her, but Suyi did not understand it. She touched the white phoenix's head and said, The world says that pets are clingy, so are you. The white phoenix was speechless. It was not a pet. No, this phoenix was going to be Nan Xian's father. Where's my little nine? Me for extra chapters. A dragon's roar sounded in the sky. The dark dragon looked down from the sky anxiously, but there was no sign of the person he wanted to see. Where did that wild man hide my little nine? I also want to be a hero and rescue my little nine, but why didn't God give me that chance? White Phoenix ignored the dark dragon's roar. It wiped Suyi's tears once again and said, Suyi, little nine's parents are also here. We have met them during the journey, so we have come here together. The white phoenix and the dark dragon were spirit beasts that could fly extremely fast after transforming. They just happened to run into Feng Tianyu and his wife, who were headed this way, so they had brought them along. Suyi was stunned, and when she looked up, she saw the two of them standing on the dark dragon's back. Nailin Yin could not take her eyes off of Qin Shun since the first time she laid eyes on him, ignoring all the people around her. Qin Shun also raised his head. His black eyes were fixed upon the two people on the dark dragon's back. Thinking that they were Feng Rooking's parents, his stern expression had gradually eased up. Unfortunately, there was no time for them to chat. The skilled masters behind Mu Huan once again made a move, rushing toward Qin Shun and the others with an unstoppable force. Chainer! Nailin Yan's face changed drastically. Feng Tianyu was even more furious. He jumped off the dark dragon's back and rushed toward Qin Shun. The dark dragon looked at Qin Shun before he turned to Feng Tianyu and followed after him. He asked, "And who is that man?" As the White Phoenix had said, they were little Nine's parents. Well, her parents were his parents too, and he wanted to show honor to them. Chapter 12-13. Feng Wuhui, Tianyai Nalin Yin rushed down from the sky anxiously, but she still answered his question patiently, as she seemed to like that dark dragon. "He might be my missing son." The black dragon was dumbfounded for a moment before roaring furiously. "Nalin Yan's missing son. Isn't he Little Nine's brother? These bastards. How dare they bullied Little Nine's brother?" It was the same as disrespecting Big Black. Damn! Big Black's overbearing momentum had somehow caused the boundless spiritual chi in the surrounding to surge violently before gathering at one spot. Big Black was at the center of the spot. Not only the crowd led by Qin Li were shocked, but the old Master Mu and the others were also startled as they looked up at the dark dragon that was roaring in the sky. A violent storm of spiritual chi surrounded it, and the sky was darkened as if it were the end of the world. Indeed, the scene shocked the crowd into silence. No one knew what was happening. They could only feel that the spiritual chi in the entire heavenly city was converging toward Big Black, making him look even more terrifying. Mu Huan was frightened. A look of shock flashed across her pale face as she gritted her teeth tightly. "Mother, if I told Lord Jia Xian about this, would he capture this dark dragon for me?" She did not know how strong this dark dragon was, but the violent storm formed from the powerful spiritual chi had almost scared her to death. It was even more powerful than Gu Shi. Therefore, Mu Huan had liked him from the first moment she saw the dark dragon and wanted him at all cost. Mu Shi suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the dark dragon in the sky gloomily. His lips curved into a mocking smile when he heard Mu Huan's words. "Lord Jia Xian loves you so much. If you ask for it, he will definitely agree." Yes. In Tianshan Manor, the only one who could subdue this dark dragon was Jia Xian, and not even Gu Shi. Mu Huan's stricken gaze was fixed upon the dark dragon, and nobody knew what she was thinking. She did not utter another word as her eyes were filled with determination. Me for extra chapters. At the back hill behind the chief manor, Gu Shi was sitting on the grass. His face was a bit pale, and his body had not fully recovered from his injuries. His gaze was still cast toward the barren land, not far away as he waited in silence. At the same time, the spiritual chi around him was suddenly drained away by a powerful force. He was surprised as he saw a tremendous force gathered in the sky and gradually forming a violent storm. It was so powerful that it could make people shake in fear. Manor Master. Elder Zhang silently stood behind Gu Shi and asked, "The powerful force just now, it's the surrounding spiritual chi." Gu Shi's face darkened. This world has been established for thousands of years, and during these years, there have always been creatures that have been transformed by the surrounding spiritual chi. These creatures can mobilize the spiritual chi at their will, and once these creatures have grown up, no one in this world can be their match. Elder Zhang's heart shuddered. Then, will this cause harm to Tianshan Manor? Gu Shi did not utter another word. He remained in silence for quite a while before he started to speak again. Those who have been transformed by the surrounding spiritual chi are as pure as a child. If they follow those who do good, they will be good. But if they are subjugated by evil, they will be evil. Chapter 12-14. Feng Wuhui, Tianya, two children are born pure, like a blank sheet of paper. Whom they become is dependent on the parents who educate them. For example, Chun Qinyan. She was a woman who was as evil as her mother. Manor Master, now you tell me, is it good or evil? Elder Zhang remained in silence for quite a while before he asked again. Gu Shi shook his head. "I'm not sure, and I can't think about other things right now. But the surrounding spiritual chi is located at Mu Manor. I don't know if someone from the Mu family has subjugated it, or the Qin family has brought it with them." He was clear about the Qin family bringing someone to harm the Mu family, which was why he had asked Qin Shun to return there, as he could guard this boundary on his own now. Elder Zhang, you can bring along our skilled masters to help. They'll be fine here. But, Manor Master, your body. Elder Zhang looked worried. The Manor Master and Qin Feier had fought back then. Qin Feier was unable to defeat the Manor Master, but he had still suffered some light injuries. Perhaps the Qin family wanted to get rid of people who were protecting the chief manor first, which was why they had attacked the Luo family and the Mu family first. I'm fine. I'll wait for Little Qing, and the others here. You can help Master Mu, after all. The chief manor and the old Master Mu are still in laws, and that's all I can do right now. The Qin family was right. He was too busy looking after himself. In the battle 2 days ago, not only was he injured, but even the chief manor's skilled masters had been killed and wounded. The Qin family felt that he would not get anywhere, so they wanted to kill the others first. Cough! Gusher coughed and sneered. You should go. If you help the Mu family, it's the same as giving a warning to Qin Li. I'm not seriously injured, so I can afford to send you to help them there. By this way, maybe we'll have a chance. A chance to help Yi return now? He could not die. If he died, Yi would never come back. Half a year ago, he had discovered an ancient book by chance in the secret room in the chief manor. It was from that ancient book that he had learned the origin of the boundary and the way to break the seal. The people inside could not get out without help from the outside. Therefore, he could only stay in the chief manor, and once they returned, he could go back to the battle. Maybe me for extra chapters. Gusher was still hoping. Besides Yi, Nanxian was also trapped within the formation. He was a man who had always made him sigh. So, if they returned, the Qin family would never dare to be arrogant again. Therefore, even though he was severely injured in that battle, he still managed to hold himself up in front of the Qin family, as he was afraid that the Qin family would kill the Manor Master first. Otherwise, those people within the boundary would never be able to return. Manor Master! Elder Zhang's face was filled with worry. Gusher laughed. Hurry and go. I'm fine here. Master Mu is Yi's future father-in-law, so I can't just stand here and watch the Mu family fall. Even if we can't do anything anymore, we must at least do our best to help him. Do you understand? This was the only sincerity he could give. If it were not for the need to guard the boundary of this place, he would have dragged his wounded body to fight the Qin family. But he could not do that now. He could not act so recklessly. All right. Elder Zhang's voice was rough and hoarse. He looked at Gusher, who was sitting on the ground as he wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. He then turned around firmly and disappeared into the back of the mountain. Chapter 12:15. Feng Wei, Tianya 3. Gusher was left alone again in the Silent Hills. Bare and lonely. It's been a year. Gusher was in a trance. Time has passed so quickly. I've never been apart from you for so long since your mother has passed away. After all, only you and I are left in this world, relying on each other. I know you don't want to get married. You couldn't cultivate because of your own obese body back then, and now it's too late to catch up. I have too many enemies in Tianshan Manor. You only know countless people fear me, but you don't know that they are waiting for the chance to kill me. I only want to find someone to protect you. That's all. Whoever that person is, I wish he can replace me in protecting you and love you for the rest of your life. He did not mean to force her to get married, but he only wanted to find someone who could protect her and love her for the rest of her life. But not Feng Ruqing. That girl, she was kind to Yi, but she would not stay in this place forever. She would leave this place one day, and Yi was not strong enough to follow her forever. It would be different if that person were her husband. The husband and wife would always stay together. Wherever he would go, she would naturally follow him forever. Feng Ruqing, Feng Tianyu, Feng Wei. No one knew that the person who had pulled Gusher out of the abyss many years ago was Feng Wuhui. However, his other name, which had shaken the hidden world and made everyone tremble in fear, was Tianya. Back then, his wife was killed just after Yi was born. He was so furious that he came to the killers alone, intending to kill all of them. At that time, he had no other thoughts in his heart, as he only wanted revenge, even if it would cost him his life. It was until Tianya, who also hated those who killed the innocents in the reclusive world, came and rescued him. He told him that dying with the enemy was the most stupid thing to do. He had to wait until his power was strong enough so that he could avenge his beloved wife. Then, Tianya left. After that, he had taken Eve back from the ones he had given her to and raised her on his own. He had cultivated himself and finally avenged his beloved wife's death. Me for extra chapters. Perhaps it was because of Tianya's influence that he had always hated those who bullied others. He had even killed the former chief manor because he was annoyed by his arrogance and had taken his position as the chief manor's master. But when he wanted to look for Tianya, he realized that after Tianya had saved him, he had been forced by those people to enter a place where he could never step out again. No one in Tianshan Manor will understand why I've always favored the Luo family. If it weren't for Tianya, I wouldn't have known about the Luo family, and I wouldn't have saved them when they were miserably oppressed back then. Gusher smiled faintly. Tian, you had only saved him once, but he had helped him suppress all of his despair back then. Because of his daughter, he must fill himself with hope. Unfortunately, Luo Fei doesn't know anything and Luo's wife. She will never say anything, but that's good. Otherwise, I'm afraid that all Tian Yas enemies will come to Lu Yun Kingdom. If that had happened, can Lu Yun Kingdom still be as peaceful as it is today? And it took him so many years to find Tian Yas' residence. Wei, just like back then, he had advised him that whatever he did, he must consider the cause and effect. He had to be like Wu Hui, living his life without any regret. Chapter 12:16. Feng Wei, Tianya. For it turned out that Tianya was actually Feng Wei. Everyone knew that Tianya had always worn a mask and had never revealed his real face. But it was because of his mask that Gu Shi could finally discover his real identity. Perhaps the only people who had seen his real face were the old couple from the Luo family. Feng Wei, Tianya, your granddaughter is a great woman. She will be like you in the future. I believe that there is no seal that cannot be broken, just like the seal of the boundary in front of me. The ancient book said that nobody could leave the boundary, but the seal can be broken if there is help from outside. Therefore, I believe that your granddaughter will bring you out. If only he had known earlier that little Qing was his granddaughter. The grace of a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. Besides, what Tinya had done for him was more than just saving his life. Suddenly, a light breeze blew upward from downhill. The whole chief manor was silent and gloomy. Gusher slowly turned his head solemnly. He could see countless skilled masters coming from nearby, ambushing him in the middle. It seems that the Qin family hasn't come alone, but they have sent so many people to me. His face was calm, expressionless. Gu Shi, the lead's face darkened. You're not worthy of your position as the manor master. Your fate has been destined, and today you will meet your end. Gu Shi stood coldly as his sleeves swayed in the light breeze. I, Gu Shi, from the moment I killed the former manor master, have tried to change the custom in Tianshan Manor on slaying the innocents. But it seems like I was wrong. No matter how much I struggled to restrain you, as long as you are given a chance, you will be like a fierce beast and try to kill me back. Do you know what you look like right now? A stubborn, rebellious child. Unfortunately, I'm not your parent either, and I've given up on you. He thought he could change the reclusive world, but the custom had been deeply ingrained in them for years. He could not do it alone. He admitted that not all people in the reclusive world were evil, as there were also some good people everywhere. But me for extra chapters. Some people were imbued with superiority and did not care about the lives of those below them. Revenge was normal, but these people would still kill some innocent people who had nothing against them just for their own pleasure. Gu Shi, you're still talking nonsense at a time like this? Qin Li is right. You're badly wounded. Otherwise, you would have directly attacked us as back and not waste your time talking nonsense like this. Gu Shi walked forward slowly. He gave a loud, cheerful laugh that echoed in the back hill for a long time. It seemed like he had made up his mind to face death unflinchingly. Even Gusher, need to sacrifice everything that I have. I will never let you and your people act rashly in my Gu manner. The man's expression was cold and stern, and his aura was like a dark cloud that made the whole sky overcast with a dusky gloom. No matter how injured he was now, his aura as a manor master was still terrifying. The people were frightened, but they quickly came back to their senses and laughed coldly. Qinli had already said that Gu Shi was just a paper tiger now. Therefore, the Qin family did not bother to hunt him down anymore, but instead, they went after Master Mu and let him deal with this paper tiger personally. So, what was there to be afraid of? Chapter 12:17. Kyuki is past, Gu Shi. You don't deserve to be the manor master. Today, we are taking back all that belongs to our Tian Shin manor. Ah! Gu Shi laughed wildly, and his laughter echoed in the sky for a long time. And today I'll show you whether Gu Shi, deserve to be the manor master or not. The green-robed man stood proudly and stared at the group of people in front of him coldly. The murderous intent that surged from the skilled master's face had reminded him of the times in the past. He was surrounded by this kind of people when he had met Tianya back then. Those people looked at each other before they instantly drew their weapons and rushed toward Gu Shi. Fengzhou mainland. In a deep mountain forest, Feng Ruqing used her sword to cut off all the vines that were blocking her way. Her face reflected discomfort as she slowed her pace and stepped onto the ground carefully. Mother, looks like there's no path forward. Worry flickered in Fu Chen's young face as he said in his small, soft voice. The wind from the surrounding whistled loud, so loud that it could make one's heart clench in fear. Feng Ruqing took Fu Chen into one arm and Qing Han into the other arm. She looked around solemnly before her eyes fell upon a tree. It was a big ancient tree that seemed like even 10 people might not be able to wrap their arms around it. Feng Ruqing somehow felt that this tree was sizing her up, and that feeling had made her feel so uneasy. Little pot, buzz! The huge pot flew up hurriedly from the back and made pleasant noises around Feng Ruqing. Did its master want it to cook the tree? Well, the tree's bark was a bit old, and it did not look tasty. But if it made its master happy, then it would cook it for her. The huge pot flew into the sky and rushed toward the ancient tree happily. Its huge body was like a dark cloud covering the sky. However, the ancient tree was bigger than the huge pot, and it looked a bit weaker under the shadow of the ancient tree. But that did not mean that the huge pot would give up in front of the ancient tree. Me for extra chapters. It took 2 machetes out of nowhere and slashed at the ancient tree. Dang! The machete landed on the ancient tree's body with a crisp sound. Feng Ruqing's eyes narrowed, because the ancient tree was unharmed. It was like a hard shield that could block all sharp weapons. Fu Chan, this tree, might have something related to us breaking the seal of the boundary. In this forbidden mountain, Feng Ruqing would not underestimate anything, even if it was just a tree. The huge pot panicked. It had never been defeated since it met its master again. But now it did not expect that it would fall in front of the big tree. It was so unbearable. Therefore, the huge pot took out all the machetes and threw them like arrows onto the ancient tree's body. The ancient tree was still unharmed. Feng Ruqing was trying to call the huge pot back, when suddenly she felt the mountain was shaking like there was an earthquake. Qing Han? Seeing that Qing Han almost fell to the ground, Feng Ruqing quickly reached out and pulled Qing Han into her arms. She stared intently at the ancient tree. The ancient tree slowly stood up. Its body was so large with a hideous and vicious human face on its trunk. Suddenly, it roared angrily. Chapter 12:18. Kyuki is past too apparently. The ancient tree was angered by the huge pot's provocations. Mother! Fu Chen panicked. The roar of the tree had made him more difficult to breathe. This tree must have something to do with the boundary. Feng Ruqing did not say a single word. Fu Chen continued, I can feel that something is manipulating its behavior. Initially, it would have been in a deep sleep when there is no intruder. But now, Little Pot has woken it up, and the only way we can leave this place is by killing the ancient tree. Qing Han blinked. "Brother Fu Chun, you do know a lot about it," she said, gazing up at him with sheer adoration. Even in such a solemn atmosphere, Fu Chun could still blush at her words. He raised his little head proudly. "Of course, I was with the Ninth Emperor back then. I was also with the Ninth Emperor, but why didn't I know about any of this?" Little Qing Han bit her finger, pitifully. Fu Qin touched her small head. "You just enjoy eating, drinking, and being merry because it'll settle the rest." The demon tree was sleeping just now, but a pot had woken it up. And by the time it woke up, it had to watch these two little kids showing affection to one another. As one who had been single for years, it really could not stand it. The demon tree became furious and charged toward Fu Chun. Its red eyes were fierce and glowing. "Damn! These people are so rude, showing affection in front of a lonely and single tree." Feng Ruching quickly dragged Fu Chun behind her. The tree's punch landed on her chest, and blood spurted out of her mouth. Her face turned pale, and her body was trembling, but she still managed to hold herself up and stand firmly. The big tree screamed angrily as countless vines appeared from the ground and rushed toward Feng Ruching. Feng Ruching tightly gripped the longsword. She looked calm, but seeing the strength of her grip on the sword, one could tell how she was feeling now. "Mother!" Fu Chen's eyes reddened. Just as he wanted to rush toward Feng Ruching, the tree vine suddenly appeared from the side and wrapped itself around Fu Chun. Fu Chun, being a Tier 7, was defenseless under the tree's attack. Me for extra chapters. Roar! Damn, these people deserve to die. They all were becoming so lovey-dovey in front of it. In its life, it hated people who risked their lives for others. These people were trying to annoy the friendless demon tree. Those tree vines were filled with thorns and became very sharp as they fell into Feng Ruching. Suddenly, a white-robed figure passed by and pounced at Feng Ruching. She pushed her down to the ground and rolled a few times, dodging the spiny vines from the big tree. Feng Ruching raised her head in a daze. "Qiu, what are you doing here?" "I've been following you." The young girl smiled brightly, and her eyes were as clear as water in which one could see their reflections. "Do you remember when you were about to leave, and you said that you'll definitely come back for me once everything is settled?" "Yes. It was the Yu family who had taken me away back then. Actually, I understand that the Yu family was trying to save me and had let me stay in the basement. I held on to the thought that the Yu family would be back, and I was waiting for them to come back for me. However, I've been waiting for the Yu family to come back for 10 years, but they didn't. When I was waiting for you, I thought that if I followed you, I would never be alone again." Chapter 12:19. Kyuki is past 3. I'm scared of going back to those dark days when I couldn't feel the sunlight for 10 years. I'm afraid that you'll be like the Yu family, leaving me alone. But later, I understand that you will never leave me. I believe when you said you'd come back for me. I'll believe in anything that you say. Master, I'll wait for you to come back. And take me away with you. The spirit beasts acknowledged their masters. So did the spirit herbs. She did not acknowledge the Yu family as her master. Yu Manor was just a temporary place for her. She had stayed with the Yu family as they had promised to take good care of her. But somehow, she was much more willing to leave with Feng Ruching since she had asked Qiu to follow her. No regrets, forever. Feng Ruching's heart trembled. A very uneasy feeling came over her. She grabbed Kyuki's hand tightly and asked, "Qiu, what are you doing?" Qiu gave a bright, charming smile. "Master, I'm willing to trust you. So can you trust me too? I'll send you off." That night, the young girl had told her in a firm tone that she would come back to pick her up and leave with her, and maybe her heart had softened. Indeed, whether it was before she had met the Yu family or the 10 years in the basement, it was all darkness for her. Sometimes a single word could easily warm her heart. Enough! Enough already! She had no regrets. Boom! A strong wind surged out of Kyuki's body. Her white robe swayed with the wind, and her beautiful eyes looked straight at the ancient tree. A powerful spiritual chi drifted out from her body, filling the whole sky. She raised her beautiful eyes. Her hair waved in the wind, and her stunning face remained calm. She looked unrealistically beautiful at this moment. Qiu. Feng Ruqing was shocked. She tried to rush to Qiuqi's side, but the spiritual qi had formed a violent storm around her, blocking all those who wanted to approach her. Even if she used all her strength, Feng Ruqing was still unable to break through the violent storm. Me for extra chapters. Master, I always feel like I've forgotten a lot of things. I only remember that I was bullied all the time back then, and that's all I know. Later, I went to the Yu family, and then I met you. She seemed to have forgotten too many things. She only remembered that she was just a little flower that was suffering from being bullied back then. As for how she had transformed into a human and how she went to Tian Yu Kingdom, she did not remember any of it. She always felt like some memories were somewhat important. Countless petals that surrounded Qiu floated up and danced along with her. And everyone could see it in Fangzhou mainland, whether it was flowers and grasses or those trees that were initially lush. All of them had suddenly withered and died. The ancient tree wailed out in grief. It became panicked, wanting to retreat and flee from this place. But before it could go any further, its leaves began to turn yellow, and countless marks appeared on the tree trunk like an old man's wrinkles. Its roots were rooted in the ground, and slowly, it lost its life. Qiu fell backward as soon as the spiritual qi dissipated. Petals fell from the sky, covering her body as she fell. The sky was blue. All the dark clouds were gone. Qiu shielded her pale face from the harsh sunlight with the back of her hand. A bright smile appeared on her pale face. Chapter 1220. Qiuqi is past for she. Suddenly remembered. She was trampled by humans and pecked by birds, but a strong hand drove the birds away and moved her to a safe place. Then there was a drought. There was no rain for a long time, and she was so thirsty that she had almost lost her life. It was that person who happened to pass by and had given her a pot of water. The grace of dripping water should be repaid by a gushing spring. Therefore, when they met again later, she would have a chance to repay the kindness she had received back then. As Qiuqi's vision gradually blurred, she desperately opened her eyes, hoping to see her savior again. Unfortunately, she could not see that person anymore. She felt so weak and slowly closed her eyes. The petals had stopped falling and had wrapped themselves around Qiuqi's body. Her long body shrunk smaller and smaller until the petals finally completely covered it. When Feng Ruqing rushed over, she could only flip out a small pink flower beneath the petals. The flower was pink and beautiful, but it was no longer able to speak to her with that gentle voice. Feng Ruqing's hand trembled. She was so careful, afraid that she would accidentally break the flower into pieces, and they would never see each other again in this life. I told you before that I would come back and take you away, but now I'll be able to take you with me, Qiu. Mother, Fu Chen gently held Feng Ruqing's hand. She doesn't have any spiritual qi anymore, and will never be able to transform into a human again. To become human again, it may take 100 years or 1,000 years, or she might never be able to do it again. He and Qinghan were special. If other spirit herbs wanted to be human, what they needed was an opportunity. Otherwise, the spirit herb would not have a soul and would never turn into a human again. It doesn't matter if it will take 100 years or 1,000 years. She has the potential to return into a human form as long as she's still alive. It doesn't matter if she doesn't have the opportunity, because it'll create an opportunity for her. I'm sure Qiu will come back to me eventually. This was the promise she had made to her. Feng Ruqing carefully took out a box, laying the pink flower in her hand safely in the box before she kept it in the medium. Me for extra chapters. Fu Chen, Qinghan, let's go. All right. Fu Chen knew that Feng Ruqing was heartbroken, so he did not dare to say anything more. He held Feng Ruqing's hand and followed her to the front. Feng Ruqing was quiet along the way, her face expressionless, but her steps were firmer than ever. She was able to leave this place because Nan Xian had shielded her from the enemy that was approaching behind her, and Qiu had sacrificed herself to destroy the ancient tree for her. She had to leave Fangzhou mainland no matter what. She would not waste their efforts, and most importantly, Nan Xian was still waiting for her. Fu Chun and Qing Han were as quiet as Feng Ruqing, as they did not want to disturb her. Only the huge pot was hovering and buzzing happily from the beginning to the end. The sky was silent, just like how Feng Ruqing was feeling now. Qing Han saw that Feng Ruqing was still quiet. She then turned to the huge, cheerful pot and suddenly became furious. Vines appeared from the ground, entangling the huge pot's body before viciously flinging it away. Chapter 12:21. He is the lost prince of Lu Yun Kingdom. I'm mother. Fu Chen could not bear to see Feng Ruqing sad. He quietly held her hand. She's just lost all her spiritual qi, but she's alive and hasn't left mother. Feng Ruqing turned and looked at Fu Chun, who had already grown up. She was silent for a while. When we go out, don't address me as mother again. Fu Chun was shocked that his face almost split open. He bit his lower lip hard and looked at Feng Ruqing without saying a single word. You've grown up, unlike little Qing Han. Call me mother. I think it is a little unrealistic. Previously, Fu Chun was at most a 3 or 4 years old adorable little boy. But since he made a breakthrough to Tier 7, he had become a teenager. She and the state preceptor could not have a son of that age yet. But I'm already used to it. Fu Chun puckered his lips with grief. It was Feng Ruqing who had forced them to address her as their mother. But now that he was grown up, she wanted to kick him away. And Fu Chun paused before asking, if I'm not allowed to call you mother, what am I supposed to call you? Call me master. Fu Chun was speechless. Why did Fu Chun feel like his status had been lowered instantly? Little Qing Han looked at Feng Ruqing and then turned to Fu Chun. She suddenly felt that not growing up was actually a good thing. At least, her mother would not kick her away. Fu Chun gritted his teeth. A burst of light surrounded him and made him shrink smaller and smaller until he became a 4 or 5-year-old child. His fair face was so soft like a porcelain doll. He was so adorable and even better than the fairy in the painting. Feng Ruqing was stunned. So, Fu Chun could change his figure as he pleased? She raised her hand and pinched Fu Chun's cute little face. How did you do that, me for extra chapters? Fu Chun grinned and lifted his little head proudly. I'm a spirit herb, so I can naturally change my body shape at will. However, I need enough spiritual qi to support me when I grow up. But only by controlling my spiritual qi, I can regain my previous size. Previously, Fu Chun and Qing Han were able to hide all of their strength so that outsiders would not be able to detect them and would treat them as ordinary children. But if they wanted people to be aware of their power, they could naturally flare all their spiritual qi. Nowadays, whenever Fu Chun flared his spiritual qi, people could not feel the power of Tier 7 from his body. They would think that he was just a Tier 5 spirit beast. Feng Ruqing was stunned. So there was still such power in spirit herbs? She suddenly thought of something and asked, so you must have enough spiritual qi to maintain an adult size. Then Xiao, what kind of spirit herb is she? Fu Chun shook his head. I'm not sure where she came from, and I've never seen her kind before, so I don't know. But, mother, can an ordinary spirit herb make all the flowers and trees in this world, and even the spirit herbs, wither? The moment Kyuki's spiritual qi dissipated, all the flowers, plants, and trees in Fangzhou mainland had withered away, including the spirit herbs. All of them were gone. But nothing had happened to Fu Chun and Qing Han, who were both spirit herbs too. So it seemed like Fu Chun and Qing Han's origin was also extraordinary. Feng Ruqing's gaze darkened as she glanced sideways at the blue sky in front of her. Her eyes flashed with fury. When I was in Haitian Kingdom, those people said that the 9th Emperor was the one who established this world. Chapter 12:22. He is the lost prince of Lu Yun Kingdom. Fu Chun was stunned by Feng Ruqing's words and did not reply. Feng Ruqing continued, all of you say that I'm the 9th Emperor. If I am the 9th Emperor, then I'd not have faced so much trouble. I'm sure he'll return to this mainland, and not just to take them away, but I'm here to figure out what's actually going on here. As soon as Feng Ruqing finished speaking, she quickly walked toward the darkness not far away. A crimson-robed figure gradually disappeared into the bright sunset. Mu Residence, Tianshan Manor. The sky was gloomy and covered with countless violent storms, as if it was the end of the world. Big Black's roar echoed in the sky, shaking the entire world. Mu Huan could not fake her stone-cold expression anymore. Her face was tight as she gazed at the dark dragon in the sky. Under the dark sky, Nailan Yin had swooped down and landed in front of Qin Shun. The young man's face was still cold, but perhaps because Nailan Yin was Feng Rooking's mother, he did not avoid her. His cold eyes fell upon Nailan Yan's stunningly beautiful face. Nailan Yin trembled as she lifted her hand and caressed the young man's handsome face. Not only the others, but even the White Phoenix was also shocked. The White Phoenix was a bit worried and turned to Feng Tianyu, but his face remained calm. Nailan Yin had done something outrageous, but he was not even angry at her. This is crazy. For the first time, the White Phoenix felt that these humans were crazy. Feng Tianyu was extremely possessive, but how could he not be jealous of what Nailan Yin had done now? Child, can you tell me where you were born? Nailan Yan's voice was trembling, as if she was a bit nervous and worried. Everyone around her seemed to have disappeared from her sight, and the only person left in her eyes was the young man in front of her. A small city in Lu Yun Kingdom. Qin Shun turned his face sideways. He's still not used to be too close to people. This is what Qin Li told me for extra chapters. Nailan Yin did not say anything as she gently rubbed the back of the young man's head. So, can you tell me, how did you get the scars on the back of your head? The scars on the back of his head were almost invisible, hidden by his hair. But the scars had not faded since he got his memory back, because some of the scars were so deep that they could not be removed without using the spirit herb. Even the pale pink scar on his face had not been removed by him yet, not to mention a place like the back of his head. The scar on my face. Someone hit me when I was on the street back then. The one on the back of my head, I was born with it, and even the Qin family doesn't know about this. How did you know? Qin Shan asked, after a moment's silence. The Qin family had not noticed the scar on his head because they just used him as a tool and never really cared about him. Suddenly, tears flowed from Nailan Yan's eyes, soaking her face. Child, I've finally found you. She was not too sure about this before she met Qin Shun. She used to be close to him, thinking that it was because of Qing'er. But when she thought about it again, with so many people around Qing'er, the only person whom she had always missed was Qin Shun. Until the moment she saw Qin Shun again, she realized that it was because of the blood tie between them that had made her feel so close, but it simply could not be part of Qin Shun. The scars were not important anymore. Chapter 12:23. He is the lost prince of Lu Yun Kingdom. 3. Nailan Yin pulled Qin Shun into her arms and held him tightly. Tears flowed down her face as she felt the pain from the guilt and regret that gushed out from the bottom of her heart. I'm sorry that I have let you suffer so much. Child, I'm sorry. Qin Shin's body slightly stiffened. He wanted to push Nailan Yin away, but seeing her in such pain, he was unable to do it after all. Nailan Yin. Suyi regained her sense and stepped forward. She gently patted Nailan Yan's shoulder and asked, Can you tell us what's going on? Mu Huan suddenly felt uneasy with Nailan Yin. She wanted to say something, but before she could say anything, she felt that the dark dragon was staring at her fiercely. And there was also a white phoenix holding a large pile of spirit herbs to heal the injuries. She thought for a while before she decided to hold the urge within her. Mu Huan smiled mockingly. When Lord Jia Xin arrives later, that dark dragon, and anyone else, all of them won't be able to escape. Nailan Yin did not respond to Suyi. She hugged Qin Shun tightly and refused to let him go. As soon as she thought of the grievances that Qin Shun had suffered over the years, all of her anger and hatred suddenly emerged. Yinner, Feng Tianyu was already next to Nailan Yin. Is it really him? Even though Feng Tianyu already knew the answer, he still could not believe it. The feeling of regaining something lost made his voice tremble, desperately wanting to hear the answer from Nailan Yin. Nailan Yin turned back to Feng Tianyu and met his eyes. Even if she did not say anything, Feng Tianyu could still see the answer in her eyes. Aha! Feng Tianyu laughed out wildly. It was a laughter of pleasure. Yes, all these years, improving his strength and to find his child, he had never been this happy. Fortunately, he had finally found him. It was a pity that they could have recognized each other before. He had let Qin Shin go, even though he was clearly fond of him. It turns out that Tianshan Manor is not as great as people had thought it to be. Feng Tianyu restrained his laughter. His eyes swept over to everyone who was there and smiled coldly. I once thought that everyone in the reclusive world was arrogant, but I didn't expect them to do something like abducting someone's son. Me for extra chapters. Boom! Feng Tianyu's word was like a bolt of terrifying lightning that had instantly exploded in the crowd. The members of the Mu family were confused. Even those people brought by Qin Li were dumbfounded. The Qin family had kidnapped someone else's child. That was impossible. Qin Shun was abandoned by his parents, and it was the Qin family who had saved his life. Wasn't it? All of a sudden, something popped up in their minds, making them tremble in fear. Qin Shin's origins had always been talked about among the Qin family, and they had never heard anything more about him from anywhere else but the Qin family. Previously, everyone in Tianshan Manor had thought that the Qin family was so kind to have brought Qin Shin home and to have taken good care of him. After all, a powerful clan like the Qin family was willing to adopt a stranger as their son. That was such a great grace. Anyone would be begging for it. It was not until just now that they realized that Qin Shun was just a drug primer for the Qin family. So, was Qin Shin's origin real or fake? What are you talking about? Qin Li was furious. His gaze turned fierce as he shouted harshly, "Don't slander me here. I took Qin Shun in with good intentions. If it weren't for me, I'd have died out there, and now you've called me a kidnapper." Chapter 1224. Jia Xin is a fickle lover. Ai Suyi was startled from the moment she heard Feng Tianyu's words. After a while, she gained her sense and turned to the Qin family. She gave them a cold smile. "I was wondering before, how could such a good child as Qin Shun have such a beastly parent? And now it turns out that he is the lost prince of Lu Yun Kingdom. The only prince of Lu Yun Kingdom. What's more ridiculous is that you have used your grace to trick him into becoming the drug primer for Qin Fei for over 10 years. If Qin Shin was just an ordinary person, some people might still believe Qin Li's words. However, if Qin Shun were indeed the only prince of Lu Yun Kingdom, no matter what, Feng Tianyu would have had no reason to abandon him, more so to even kill his own son. Nonsense! Qin Fei's eyes were red with anger. "Qin Shun is my brother. He can't be your child. Absolutely not. His parents have abandoned him. It was my father who had saved him." She admitted that Qin Shun had donated blood to her as a drug primer. She also acknowledged all the things that Qin Shun had done for the Qin family. But she could never admit that the Qin family had abducted Qin Shun. Even if Qin Shun did not want to return to the Qin family again, she hoped that Qin Shin would not hold a grudge against her. How could these people be so heartless? They had been together for more than 18 years, and she had treated him as her brother for a long time. Even if he chose to follow Feng Ruqing, she was furious, angry, and mad. But she always felt that one day, Qin Shin would come to his senses and return to the Qin family, which was why she had not immediately attacked him just now. After all, her heart was always softened to him. However, if the Qin family's biggest secret was revealed, the relationship between the Qin family and Qin Shun would be destroyed. Sui looked at Qin Fei and chuckled. "Everyone in Tianshan Manor says that the manor lady of the Qin family is fair and selfless, kind and gentle. You have a good reputation, but now you are just a selfish person." Qin Fei's body stiffened. Yes, people were all selfish. Me for extra chapters. Previously, all her words were full of righteousness, as everything had nothing to do with her. But once it happened to her, all the selfishness suddenly showed up, and she could no longer be fair and selfless. Qin Fei released her clenched fists. "I don't know what you're talking about, but I, Qin Fei, have never lied. These two persons have not found their child yet, but simply claim someone else as their son. If I simply find somebody and say he is my child, will he really be my child then? The sky was dark. Qin Feier, who was standing under the gale, smiled coldly. She showed no fear as she stared at Feng Tianyu and Nailan Yin. Damn! The White Phoenix finally came back to its senses and spewed out angry words. Who asked you to talk so much? You love talking too much. And here your grandpa, White Phoenix, will make sure you'll never be able to speak again. A fury flame swept over like the wind, instantly arriving in front of Qin Feier. Qin Feier's face darkened. She waved her sleeves, emitting a strong wind, and destroyed the fury flame in an instant. At the same time, her face became pale and colorless, and she spat out a mouthful of blood again. Her body was trembling, and she almost fell to the ground. My family? Ops. Xiao Qingqing's parents are talking. How dare you speak so much in front of them? The White Phoenix proudly lifted its small chin. Don't blame me for not reminding you. I'm pretty well-tempered, but you can look up at my friend in the sky. Chapter 12:25. Jia Xin is a fickle lover too. Qin Feier was stunned. Her eyes were met with a pair of fierce eyes as she raised her head. The dark dragon's body grew bigger and bigger in the sky. Boundless spiritual qi gathered from the side, creating a storm above its head. The storm grew bigger and bigger, and finally, in a flash, it blasted across the sky and scurried toward Qin Feier. Feier, be careful. Qin Li's face changed drastically. He cared deeply about his only daughter. His entire face was full of anxiety when he saw that sudden storm. Until a gust of wind swept past them, like a shadow coming unexpectedly from nearby. The figure created a barrier in front of him and deflected the powerful storm. It was a handsome young man in a bright cotton robe, standing calmly in front of the crowd. He raised his chin slightly and looked at them with slight disdain. Then his gaze turned to the dark dragon in the sky, the creature from surrounding spiritual qi. He did not expect that he would be so lucky today to be able to capture a dragon conjured by the surrounding spiritual qi. The surrounding spiritual qi that had transformed into a dragon. It would have taken about 10,000 years to form. If he could capture this dragon, then he would no longer be afraid of that bastard Tianya. Whenever he thought of Tianya, his eyes were on fire, and he wanted to smash that bastard down into the ground. Lord Jia Xin. Mu Huan had always feared Jia Xin. Only this time, she was so happy to see Jia Xin that she had almost burst into tears. The cold, arrogant character that he held for so many years had become a need now. There's a dragon that is formed from the surrounding spiritual qi, and also a group of people who have bullied my little lady. Jia Xin sneered. Since that's the case, then this Tianshan manor will be given to my Huaner as a gift. He waved his hand, and countless black-robed men emerged from his body. The manor master of Tianshan Manor seems to be called something like Gu Shi. Go finish him off. Yes. After those people had received their orders, they moved like a light breeze and disappeared from behind him. Me for extra chapters. Mushi dumbfoundedly looked at Jia Xin, who chose to alter his fate to be the manor master, with adoring eyes. So this is the advantage of power. With power, this world was in his hands. Jia Xin was smiling from above, enjoying the admiring looks of those who worshipped him, as if he was the god who controlled everyone's life. All these years, he had not dared to appear in front of people as he was still recovering his strength. But now his strength had almost recovered. He had also sensed the movement of the surrounding spiritual qi, so he came to find out what was going on. Unexpectedly, not only was his little lady bullied, but he had also gained a dark dragon. Qin Li narrowed his eyes. He looked at Mu Huan and gave Qin Feier a look. Qin Feier's face went white. She bit her lower lip hard and remained silent. When Qin Li saw that Qin Feier did not say anything, he could not help but stand in tears. Lord Jia Xin, you have to handle this matter for my daughter. Father. Qin Feier looked at Qin Li incredulously as her beautiful eyes were filled with shock. Why did her father want to push her away? She was his beloved daughter. Chapter 12:26. Jia Xin is a fickle lover. 3 Qin Feier did not understand. To Qin Li, no matter how important his daughter was, she was not as important as power. Otherwise, he would not have let her take the spirit herb. Jia Xian glanced at Qin Li, and only then did he notice the girl standing next to Qin Li. This girl had obviously taken some spirit herb to boost her strength, causing some wrinkles to appear at the corners of her eyes. But it did not matter, as he had a spirit herb that could help her retain her youthful looks. Other than that, this girl was quite good-looking. So it was for this girl that Huaner had asked me for the spirit herb to boost her strength? The spirit herb that I gave Huaner can forcefully increase one's strength, but as all potential has been used, she will grow older. But it's okay. I have an herb to cure it. Unfortunately, the youthful appearance could still be retained, but if she lost her life, she would never get it back. Mu Ling felt regretful from the moment he was there. He regretted his cowardice and not stepping forward to block the hit for Suyi. He had missed his last chance. What happened then? He did not hear it at all, as his mind was confused. It was as if his brain were stuffed with cotton. Several times he tried to walk to Suyi's side, but he lost courage. Until Jia Xin's voice rang out, startling him. He turned his head and looked at Mu Huan. Is that really you? Did you give Qin Feier the spirit herb to boost her strength? You're the one who has caused the Mu family and the entire Tianshan Manor to be in such tragedy? Did you do that? Mu Ling was furious as he rushed over her and fiercely choked Mu Huan's neck. Anger boiled behind his eyes. Why did you do that? Why? Mu Huan was being strangled, and she was about to vomit blood. Her eyes almost popped out, and she hurriedly turned to Jia Xian for help. Lord Jia Xian, save me. Jia Xian was usually enamored with new people, as mentioned before. He had abandoned his old lover after getting Mu Huan and had given Mu Huan all his favorites. When he spoiled Mu Huan, he would give her everything. But once he stopped doing that, he would send her to the cold palace or even drive her out of the courtyard. Therefore, Mu Huan's heart instantly sank and devastated as she saw Jia Xian was now completely attracted to Qin Feier. Me for extra chapters. Huaner! Chen Xinyan screamed and cried out as she rushed toward Mu Ling. Let go of Huaner. Brother Ling, let go of Huaner. Lord Jia Xian, you have to save Huaner. You have to save her. Get out of my way. Mu Ling kicked her away as his eyes were bloodshot and red. You two bitches want to harm my Mu family. I'll be the first one to kill you today, bitch. The clansmen of the Mu family were also stunned. Initially, they were on Mu Huan's side because they thought that Mu Huan would be able to lead them through this crisis. No one had expected that the disaster that happened in Tianshan Manor would be brought by Mu Huan. Mu Huan, has the Mu family wronged you? Why did you do this? You have such a miraculous spirit herb. Why did you let the Qin family take advantage of it? That spirit herb could have boosted the Mu family's strength. So, why did you give it to the Qin family? You are a traitor to our Mu family and deserve to die. Those who came with Mu Huan did not make any move, as they would only listen to Jia Xin's orders now. Fortunately, even if Jia Xian were such a fickle lover, he would not go too far as to neglect the woman he used to be with, especially when the woman was bearing his child. Chapter 12:27. Jia Xian is a fickle lover, for Jia Xian waved his sleeve, and a blade of wind suddenly flew over, landing right on Mu Ling's arm. Mu Ling let go of his hand in pain. Mu Huan's body fell to the ground, catching her breath as her face remained red for a long time. Lord Jia Xian. Mu Huan crawled to Jia Xin's side as she burst into tears. He's going to kill me. He's really going to kill me. Lord Jia Xian, you must help me to kill him. Oh, Jia Xian smiled. Little lady, your mother has sent you to me as a gift. Oh, and one more thing. She has also requested that she wanted Mu Shi to be the manor master. I'm not a heartless person, so I'll give Tianshan Manor to her, and also as compensation to you. Mu Huan was dumbstruck at his words. Her entire body stiffened. What did Jia Xian just say? Was she a gift from her mother? Her mother wanted Mu Shi to be the manor master of Tianshan Manor? Why was this happening? Her mother had clearly said that she was allowed to approach Jia Xian to save their family. In the end, it turned out that Her mother was trying to make Mu Shi the manor master of Tianshan Manor? Ridiculous, so ridiculous. Huh? After all, her son, Mu Shi, was the most important to her mother, and her daughter was just a tool to her. Mu Huan laughed madly as some strands of her hair fell loose from her head. She staggered as she tried to stand up. Mu Huan, Jia Xin frowned even harder. I've always been polite, and I've treated you well. You can go now. I've never been interested in Tianshan Manor anyway, so I'll hand it to you later. The only thing he was interested in his life were women. Jia Xin no longer paid attention to the crazy Mu Huan and turned to look at Qin Li. What did you want me to do just now? Qin Li was delighted. He ignored Qin Feier and said pleasingly, Lord Jiaokin, this boy is my adopted son. I was kind enough to save his life, but he has become so ungrateful. He's even scheming and trying to kill my daughter. Jia Xin was furious. Me for extra chapters. A beautiful woman was meant to be pitied, and how dare these people hurt his woman? This is the first time I have met such an ungrateful kid. If that's the case, he'll settle it today. Kid, he'll not go easy on you after all you've done to my beautiful lady. Feng Tianyu rushed forward. He pushed Nailin Yin and Qin Chen behind him and blocked them off. His face was cold and stern. You're a strong man, but you believe the rumors so easily. I'm afraid your intelligence is worse than a 3-year-old child. Jia Xin sneered. To me, whatever my woman said, it's all correct, and he'll believe my woman more than you. He did not care if what Qin Li said was true or not. The only thing he knew was that these people had made his beauty sad. Thus, 1,000 deaths would not atone for such a crime. Roar! Big Black roared and rushed toward Jia Xin. Its body was huge. Jia Xin's face darkened. He raised his hand, and a long sword suddenly appeared in his palm. Boom! The long sword arced out of his hand, flew through the air, and landed on Big Black's body. The sharp edge of the sword had cut and left a bloodstain on its back. But as if it did not feel the pain, it swooped down angrily and let out an earth-shattering roar. Chapter 1228. The medium cracked Sui. Mu Ling rushed towards Sui's side as his eyes were filled with tears and grief. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I never knew that they would become like that. I've wronged you. Can you give me another chance? Let me protect you properly. Sui's face remained calm, perhaps. From the moment she left the Mu family back then, she had already drawn a clear line with Mu Ling. She never looked back on her life, and she would never stay with someone who once gave up on her. Somehow, Sui's heart filled with warmth as her mind floated back to the phoenix that had just recklessly jumped in front of her. She lifted her soft and elegant face, and her cold eyes finally softened as she looked at the white phoenix. The white phoenix became furious when it saw Mu Ling was close to Sui. Its eyes spotted fire as it rushed over and took Sui into its arms using its feathers. The white phoenix glared fiercely at Mu Ling's scum. Stay away from my Sui. This scum did not have any right to pursue Sui. Sui was great and perfect. How could she allow this scum to be rude in front of her? Mu Ling was dumbfounded as he looked at Sui, who was being protected by the white phoenix's wings, and his heart was filled with inexplicable emotions. It was as if something most beloved to him had been taken away from him. Sui stayed in the white phoenix's embrace and no longer paid attention to Mu Ling. Her gaze turned to the dark dragon who was fighting with Jia Xin. Her face darkened. Big Black was roaring furiously. Even with its huge body, its speed was not slower than Jia Xin's. It moved as fast as lightning and instantly rushed in front of Jia Xin. Jia Xin stared at the dark dragon coldly. He sneered, and with a flick of his hand, countless sword lights leaped out from above his long sword. These sword lights were like twine, wrapping around Big Black in the air and firmly trapping its 4 claws. A surrounding spiritual chi that hasn't fully grown up until today is trying to defeat me. Your strength can only suppress the people in this mainland. Bang! Me for extra chapters. Jia Xin fiercely exerted all his energy, causing Big Black to fall from the sky and hit the ground hard. The dark dragon's body was surrounded by light and gradually transformed into a young man. At this moment, the young man was staring at Xian angrily. A ferocious light burned in his eyes. If you dare to do anything to me, my little nine will definitely take revenge for me. In his previous life, every time he lost a fight, his little nine would personally avenge him so that no one dared to bully him anymore. Until, when he could finally have the strength to protect his little nine, she had disappeared from his world for a wild man whom she had met. He had spent countless years wandering around before he could find her again. Initially, with little Fu Chen's help, he had regained some of his lost strength. But unfortunately, the world still suppressed him, making him unable to recover his strength completely. If only he could be as strong as he was back then, these people would not have dared to bully his little nine anymore, and they would never dare to hurt little nine's family. The young man's body trembled as a black mist faintly surfaced on his body. Meanwhile, no one noticed that the sky above their heads seemed to start to crack. It was too subtle and almost impossible to see if one did not look hard enough. Chapter 1229. The Chief Manor's Fate. I Qinli laughed out loud as he looked at the young man who had fallen to the ground. He then turned to Nailin Yin and the others who were filled with anger. Suddenly, he felt an unexplainable pleasure that even his laughter was tinged with happiness. Initially, he had thought that his life would be over. He did not expect everything to turn out like this in the end. Qin Chun, the Mu family, and these family members of Feng Ruqing, he would not let them go. The Mu family's front gate was suddenly quiet. The sky was dark, and beneath this calmness hid a brewing storm that seemed to threaten to devour all these people. In the chief manor, Gu Shi was covered in blood. The long sword in his hand was plunged into the ground as he raised his head to look at the dark sky. He felt like the sky and the mainland seemed to be changing. Cough! Gu Shi coughed out a mouthful of blood and wiped it away with the back of his hand. His eyes reflected his decision to face death head-on. Those on the other side were still sneering. Their disdainful gaze was cold and filled with mockery as they stared at Gu Shi, who was in front of them. Gu Shi, you don't want us to get close to the place behind you. Are you trying to protect your daughter? By the way, Master Qin said that your daughter has disappeared from the backyard of Gu Manor and has gone to another place. You are trying so hard to protect that place. Is there a possibility that if we destroyed the hill behind Gu Manor, that she would never come back? Huh? The man laughed wildly, and his figure was like the wind, rushing to Gu Shi's front. Gu Shi's face darkened as he raised his sword to block the other man's long sword. He was pushed backward, leaving a deep mark on the ground. It does not matter why I am forbidding you to set foot in the back hill. I only know that as long as I, Gu Shi, am still here, I will never allow anyone in my territory to act wildly. He would rather die trying than ever give up. As long as he was still alive, he would never bow down to anyone. His dignity was priceless. If he let people step into his territory as they wished, causing his daughter never to come back, what dignity would he still have left? What was the point of him living without her daughter? Gu Shi, you've brought this on yourself. A cold light flashed in the man's eyes, and with a sneer, he leaped up once more. Gu Shi straightened his back and fearlessly faced these people's attacks as they charged toward him like a swift wind. Me for extra chapters. All of his spiritual qi gathered onto his sword, and with a single sword strike, one person fell into a pool of blood. Blood stained the grass and trees at the foothill, causing the whole sky to lose its usual color. A strong smell of blood filled the entire manor. I'm sorry. Perhaps Father will no longer be able to be with you, but I will use all of my strength to stop these enemies, and I will use the last of my soul to guard this place until you return. It's the last thing Father can do for you. Gu Shi's gaze grew firmer, and his energy grew even stronger, so that it made those who rushed toward him become horrified by him. Qinli had said that Gu Shi was already severely injured, but why was he still so powerful? Such powerful energy could make one's heart tremble in fear. Gu Shi's energy would drain a bit with every person he slew. The blood in his mouth spurted out continuously, and it was not sure how much blood he had left that he would be able to spit out. The crowd was shocked after seeing Gushur, who was so reckless with his life. He was ruining his life to fight with these people. Even if Gushur won this battle, he would be half paralyzed, and he might even lose his past glory. Chapter 1230. Feng Ruching. The holy warrior his blue robe was stained with blood. Gushur's footsteps trembled slightly, but he still stood as firm as a mountain. There were countless figures rushing toward him from the sky, not far away. The powerful force was like a boulder pouring down from the sky. Gushur spat out a mouthful of blood as his body could not bear the force that was coming to him. His body shook a few times. He used his sword to stand firmly and keep his knees from falling to the ground. He lifted his pale and handsome face, looking at the strong men coming swiftly from the sky with a bitter smile on his lips. It seemed he still could not hold on any longer. Gushur's legs were trembling as he directly faced those coming down from the void, but his face remained calm as if he was ready to face his death. In this life, I, Gushur, have never wronged anyone, but my wife was killed, and my daughter has been bullied. Cowardice will only hurt those close to me. I will use my blood to protect my only daughter, and I will never regret it, even if I need to step over corpses. Because all of those people that I have killed are all evil. After all, I've accepted the determination of these wicked men to defy me, so much so that I can no longer be there for my daughter. Even so, I will not give up until the last moment, and I will never bow down to these wicked men. The man's robe swayed in the breeze, like a proud bamboo in the cold wind, facing the many shadows of the sword lights. The countless sword lights came pouring like the rain, tore through, and ripped his robe, leaving his body with bloody marks. He lost his energy, and his entire body looked wretched. But somehow, the enemies who were standing in front of him felt touched as they looked at his condition now. Gushur was a man with an admirable spirit. Unfortunately, the law of the jungle was the rule of this world. If one did not kill, others would certainly do so. Ever since Gushur became the manor master, they could no longer wantonly bully the weaker clans, and they could no longer take away any girl they liked. Me for extra chapters. Gushur had always prioritized the weak. How could they accept a manor master who was so inconsiderate of them? So, what had happened to Gushur today was all his own fault. Gushur laughed loudly as his cold eyes flashed with a resolute light. This time, he was faced with the group of skilled masters in front of him, but he had also set his eyes on watching the back hill. Mengqing, let me do one last thing for you. If I can no longer protect Yi in this life, I hope that you can help me protect her for the rest of her life. At that moment, all the spiritual chi gathered in front of Gushur as it turned into a gale that crashed into that empty boundary. A crack resounded. The seal of the boundary visibly cracked open as the gap grew wider and wider. And finally, it shattered into countless pieces that eventually dissipated into the air. This boundary had two sides, separating these two worlds. A holy warrior could enter the boundary, but no one could step out of it. Of course, Nan Xian, who was also of holy warrior tier, was an exception. He was able to walk into the boundary once he reached his ultimate strength. Those who were inside could only break the seal from inside the boundary, but those with even the greatest strength would not be able to break the seal from the outside of the boundary. Chapter 1231. Feng Ruching, the holy warrior too, it was like. There was no way out of that world. That was the rule made by the people who had built that world. The entire Fangzhou mainland was in a formation, and the boundary was also set up by a formation with specific regulations. Even in the ancient book that Gushur had found, there was no clear mention of why the people from that world could not come out. Fangzhou mainland, as its name indicated. According to the ancient book, the people of Fangzhou mainland were those who had been banished, and the spirit beasts of that land guarded them. Gushur did not break the seal of the boundary at first because he would have to use up all of his strength to be able to break it. He initially held on to the hope that if he could settle these enemies, he would still have a chance to see his daughter again. But now he had no choice. He could only use the last of his strength to help them, to get out of that world so that they would not be trapped there for countless years. Food. Gusher spurted out another mouthful of blood and collapsed. This time, he really had no spiritual chi left in his body. As his vision blurred, he saw the strong enemies swarming around him like bees. Through that group of fierce and powerful enemies, he seemed to transcend time and space to meet a sweet, smiling face from 20 years ago. I can finally see you again. He never married again since his beloved wife had left him 20 years ago. The only one he could not leave behind was their daughter, Gui. As Gusher slowly closed his eyes, he suddenly saw a huge pot falling from the sky, not knowing if it was his illusion or not. Yes, it was a huge pot. It smashed right on the top of a man's head in front of him. The man's head was spinning as something wet splattered on his face. Gusher laughed bitterly. Perhaps he was hallucinating? He could even see a pot that could fly. Gusher's eyes were closed. Only a clear and innocent childish voice echoed in his ears. "Mother, it's too bad that this guy hasn't died yet." Gusher was speechless. Me for extra chapters. He passed out before he could open his eyes again, and he had no idea what was going on. Under the sky, in a red robe, the young girl stood against the wind as her cold eyes scanned the strong men in the sky. She slowly raised her hand, and in a flash, a long sword appeared out of nowhere in her palm. The boundless spiritual chi was like threads of silk, twisting around her body. Her red robe was fluttering in the wind. She looked like the queen of the world, beautiful and magnificent. A holy warrior? Those strong men of Tianshan Manor all knew Feng Ruqing, and many of them had even seen her at the old Master Mu's evening feast. They also knew that Feng Ruqing was pursuing the Gu family's daughter, Gu Yi, and Nan Xian had gone to catch her. But why? Did Feng Ruqing come back here? And she had made a breakthrough to Holy Warrior tier. Everyone's hearts were filled with horror. They panicked as they looked at Feng Ruqing's expression. Feng Ruqing has returned. But where is Master Nan Xian? Master Nan Xian has been strong since the beginning. But now, 1 year has passed. Has he become stronger? Mother, Qing Han propped her cheek on her palm and smiled. Grandfather Gu hasn't broken his neck yet. Chapter 1232. Feng Ruqing, the Holy Warrior 3. If Gusher were still awake right now and heard himself being addressed as a grandfather by a 1,000-year-old little demon, he would probably be pissed off at her. Fu Chun, Qing Han, you take care of Master Gu. I'm going to go to the Mu family. All right. Qing Han's cute little face was filled with smiles. But Fu Chun was slightly worried. Mother, are you okay? Yes. Feng Ruqing raised her eyes. She moved her sword and slashed at a man who rushed in front of her. I've just broken through to Holy Warrior tier, so I need to practice. She had found the boundary not long ago, and combined with Fu Chen's strength, she was able to break the seal of the boundary. As for that huge pot, it could hit people, but to break the seal, obviously it could not do that. Unfortunately, after they broke the seal of one boundary, there was another one that they could not break even after they had used all their strength. Of course, they had also gained a benefit through these hard times. At least, Feng Ruqing had made a breakthrough to Holy Warrior tier. But this was actually related to Qiuqiu. When Qiuqiu was dispersing her spiritual chi, she had secretly given a part of it to Feng Ruqing. But Feng Ruqing was filled with anger and grief at the time, as she did not notice it. Until she had spent so much spiritual chi just to break the seal of the boundary. She had even used the black sword in her dantian to fill up her spiritual chi. This interchange allowed her to break through the bottleneck and reach lower Holy Warrior tier. Buzz! 2 more people rushed toward Feng Ruqing from both sides. The huge pot was shaking with rage as it slammed right into the man's body until he fell to the ground so hard that even his chest was caved in. Feng Ruqing made a move and slashed the other person with her sword. Her whole body was soaked in blood. She stepped on the corpses and slowly walked out of the chief manor. Besides those holy warriors sent by Jia Exun, the others did not dare make any move against her. Wherever Feng Ruqing was headed, A few holy warriors would try to block her way, but no one could stop her. Little Ching Han yawned and rubbed her eyes. Brother Fu Chun, I'm a little sleepy. Fu Chun was crouching and feeding Gu sure as spirit herb. Only after seeing that his breathing had stabilized did he stand up and look at those enemies who were left behind. Me for extra chapters. These people were quietly relieved when they saw that Feng Ruching had left, leaving behind only 2 children. They did not care about the 2 children, as they hurriedly wanted to leave this place. Ching Han turned her head to the side and stared at the group of people who were about to leave. Do you want to run away after bullying someone? Mind your own business, little kid, or Uncle will send you to the wolves now. If it were those people from Luoyuan Kingdom, they would never dare to talk to these 2 little kids like this. Unfortunately, the people from Tianshan Manor did not know these 2 little kids. They also underestimated the power of these 2 little kids. Ching Han was so furious. She blocked the doorway, showing her teeth fiercely. Even if she pretended to be fierce, she still looked so innocent and naive. I'm super fierce, and I can bite, but you guys aren't even afraid of me. She was really, really fierce. The people in Luoyuan Kingdom were so scared of her. Get out of my way! These people were rushing to save themselves, swinging one hand at Ching Han. Before his hand could touch little Ching Han, he was tied securely by a vine and hung up in the air with a loud clatter. Chapter 1233. Feng Ruching, the Holy Warrior, 4 afterward. The vine moved the person right in front of little Ching Han. What happened next was such a horrifying scene. This soft and cute little girl's whole face had drastically changed. Her mouth began to expand. Her eyes and nose had all disappeared, and the only thing left on her small face was her big mouth. But her mouth was getting bigger and bigger, so big it might grow beyond her body size. The man was so scared that he wet his pants. He could already feel a strong pull from the mouth, like a black hole that wanted to drag his entire body in. Ching Han, Fu Chen was already next to Ching Han. He raised his hand and touched Ching Han's little head. Mother is not here, and you've started to eat as you wish again. These big uncles haven't bathed yet. They will make your stomach hurt. Oh, little Ching Han seemed a bit unhappy as she dropped the vine and turned her body back to its original state. With a cute pink face and big innocent eyes, she looked so different than the little monster she was just now. But this time, everyone was dumbfounded, and no one dared to underestimate this little girl again. Are you going to run again? Ching Han asked as she turned her head and looked at the group of people who were pale and scared. No, we'll never do it again. Well, that's good. Only the good one will survive. If you don't listen to me, you'll only be my snack. Little Ching Han crossed her arms, squinting. And I'm really super fierce. You have seen how I look now? Am I scary? The crowd looked at little Ching Han's innocent and pretty face and nodded hurriedly. Little Ching Han smiled happily. Brother Fu Chun, I've told you I'm super fierce. Did you see that? These people are scared of me. Fu Chun pinched little Ching Han's small face. Well, you're indeed super fierce. Little Ching Han was unhappy and puffed up her cheeks. Brother Fu Chun, don't pinch my face. It will get fatter, and I will not look fierce anymore. If those people aren't afraid of me, they'll go after Mother again. Well, these people had not dared to attack her mother just now because they were scared of her super fierce look. Fu Chun turned to the trembling crowd in front of him. His body became long. Just now, he was only a 4 or 5-year-old boy, but he had changed to a teenage boy as his spiritual chi increasingly gathered. The crowd was stunned. This little guy, how did he grow up like this? Me for extra chapters. Can a spirit beast change its size as it wished? Their faces changed drastically, especially after they realized that Fu Chun had become more powerful than before. Although they had not reached Holy Warrior tier, they had once felt the power of Holy Warrior tier. Feng Ruching was a Holy Warrior. And now, this little boy's strength should be as powerful as a Holy Warrior's. A tier 7 spirit beast. All of you can't leave. My mother will be back after she is done with her things there. Fu Chen snorted. Those people were under his control now, and they did not dare to move at all. Besides, There was another little girl beside Fu-chun who would eat people as she wished. It was so scary to think about that. Mu Manor. Jia Xan stared coldly at the dark dragon that was lying on the ground. The crack on top of Big Black's head grew bigger and bigger as the surrounding spiritual chi swirled around its head. The sky was no longer dull and gray. Instead, it had grown a little darker. Chapter 1234. Feng Ruching, the Holy Warrior v. Big Black. The White Phoenix was suddenly shocked when it saw Jia Xian already raising his long sword. It had at least spent more than a year with Big Black. When it saw the situation he was in, it suddenly panicked and quickly rushed toward Jia Xian. Bang! Before Jia Xian could do anything, a guard behind him had already made his first move. The White Phoenix was kicked several meters away by the guard and rolled helplessly onto the ground. The young man looked at the White Phoenix before turning to Nailin Yin and Feng Tianyu, who were walking toward him. He shouted angrily, "Go away! All of you! Go!" Nailin Yin paused. She did not know the Dark Dragon's origin. She only knew the Dark Dragon was Qingyer's friend. So, after a moment, she continued walking toward the Black Dragon. Jia Xin's eyes narrowed as he looked at Nailin Yin in amazement. Unfortunately, he was not interested in a married woman. Otherwise, he would have chosen Nailin Yin rather than Mu Huan and Qin Feier. He knew that there was a beautiful woman in the Mu family named Suyi, but he did not pursue her because he had no interest in a married woman. If little Jojo comes back later, please tell her, be it Big Black or Big Gray in this life, I will always protect her. Whether she runs off with a wild woman or a wild man, I will always follow her wherever she goes. Since the moment she has taken me off the streets and gave me a home, she can never cast me off anymore. So, no matter where I'm going, it'll always come back to her, and in this life I'll never leave her again. It took countless years for the surrounding spiritual chi to develop its thought and to complete the transformation. Therefore, it had been alone for so many years, alone and friendless, until a young girl dressed in red appeared in front of it. Me for extra chapters. She had asked it to go home with her, and it did without hesitation. Therefore, be it 100 years or 1,000 years, it would find her wherever she was. She was its life, and the only person it loved. In this world, the cracks became bigger. Finally, someone noticed the crack in the sky. Without waiting for that person to shout in alarm, boundless spiritual chi surged out from the crack, instantly filling Tian Shin Manor with powerful spiritual chi like a heavy mist. God, what is that place? Why is the spiritual chi so powerful? If I were able to cultivate in that place, it won't take a long time before I can make a breakthrough to Holy Warrior tier, right? I know that there are thousands of mainlands in this world, but I never thought that there would be a place with such a powerful spiritual chi. Jia Xian raised his head in shock. He gazed at the cracked sky in disbelief. His throat was dry. His heart skipped a beat as his entire body stiffened, unable to move. The young man finally broke free and turned into a dark dragon once again, instantly rushing toward Jia Xian. Perhaps Jia Xian had not recovered from the shock and did not even think that Big Black could break free. He was caught off guard when the dark dragon snatched him and flew toward the crack in the sky. The crack was gradually sealed up after Jia Xian and the dark dragon disappeared into it. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.